Hello, welcome to another episode of Heaven Will Be Mine. So, we just did a mission with Pluto, and now we're going to go do a mission with Saturn. After, of course, we've got to check our mail. Okay, so we've got one about Mare Crisium. Oh, I see. So, subject regarding Mecha 1, Mare Crisium. Origin, ship self-design notes. Author, Dr. Nix. Dr. Nix has come up before. I don't know. Evidently not as an author. I think one of the kind of architects of this whole project, similar to Europa, but not about training the pilots, more on the side of making the mechs or at least maintaining them. Yeah, Dr. Nix here. Yes, Dr. Nix was the kind of hapless person who was like, I don't understand people, but can you just make this pilot the mech? What do you mean? My siblings always like this? Blah, blah, blah. So, regarding Mecha 1, Mare Crisium. Origin, ship self-design notes. Author, Dr. Nix. In a ship self, you don't have to worry about dying. Not in the same sort of way. A ship self, isn't even a weapon. It's a body for living and traveling in space, and it is equipped for doing the sorts of things that humans need to do. Like fighting. The ship self, which lets you express like it's your own body, better than your own body, is a machine that's for falling in love and having fights. I said literally all of this last episode. It's not a weapon. It's a body. It's for living and traveling in space. It's equipped for things humans do. And when it says like fighting here, I think that is meant to imply not just combat, but arguing or conflict broadly. Also, it's a machine for falling in love and having fights. It's very funny that I was literally just saying, oh, Dr. Nix is kind of like stuffy and doesn't understand people, but apparently does understand mechs. It's formed to literally suit us. It bears only the most abstract resemblance to something designed to kill another human being. The most efficient possible form for ending lives as quickly as possible wouldn't look anything like a human, and that's why Europa designed them from a child's toy. The ship self isn't the perfect form for war. It's a form that by nature turns war into something else. Design them from a child's toy. I don't know what that means yet. Part of this is due to humanity's relative weakness in space. Separated from the origin of our gravity, even with the power of a tidal reactor, we've barely come close to developing a ship self with gravitational and metacultural authority equivalent to a human being's on Earth. While humans on Earth need to devote most of this authority to keeping their shape, identity, and differentiation from other humans, a ship self is less authoritative even than this, though in space they have far fewer restrictions than humans on Earth. If a ship self were to make planetfall, it would be crushed under human pressure and rendered lifeless. Oh boy, okay. I didn't understand all of that, but we gotta dig into it. I'm gonna start from... I don't know what design them from a child's toy means. I have noted that this is set in the 80s, so I assume that it's not at all meant to be an alternate history. It's meant to be quite explicitly underlining. It's meant to be underlining that it's a metaphor more than anything. Like, real doesn't mean anything, but you know what I mean. So, humans are weak in space, separated from the origin of our gravity. We've barely come close to developing a ship self with gravitational and metacultural authority equivalent to a human being's on Earth. To me, this is presumably meant to be about the fact that space is where people can go to be themselves because they escape from the gravity of Earth, where there is an identity being projected onto you that you are beholden to. And so my assumption is that metacultural authority is about that kind of identity. that a human being on Earth is subject to a metacultural authority. Society and culture are telling you who you can be and who you are, that they're unable to enact in space. Humans on Earth need to devote most of this authority to keeping their shape, identity, and differentiation from other humans. So humans on Earth spend their authority keeping their shape and identity and differentiation from others. So it's still talking about the idea of people on Earth being individuals and differentiating each other from this. But ship selves are less authoritative. Ship selves are more fluid. I see. When it's talking about being authoritative, a ship self is not a fixed, I am a blank. I am a clearly defined and well laid out for me identity. Ship selves are messy, loose. They can change, they can develop, you can figure it out. Because when it says less authoritative, that is, I believe, about not being stuck with the gravity of someone on Earth. That means you can set those boundaries yourself, or you can break those boundaries because you're just not having them enforced upon you in the same way. And then, as it says, you have far fewer restrictions than humans on Earth. If a ship self were to make planetfall, it would be crushed under human pressure and rendered lifeless, which is that the mainstream is not ready for all of these pilots' queer expressions of themselves. They cannot survive. They would not hold up if they were trying to just bring these to, scare quotes, normal society. Mainstream society, obviously, that's a better way to put that. I'm fairly sure this makes sense. I'm not going to go back for this, but this does make me wonder about... I've talked about culture to do with... I believe they've talked about culture to do with Halamede as well as love as a force for Halamede, and now I'm very curious what their intention with Halamede is. What is Halamede supposed to do that would allow them to effectively have this kind of control over the people? But again, all of this continues to make me dislike the Memorial Foundation because they want everyone to leave space, go back to Earth, and submit to the regular metacultural authority they want to enact on them. This was a juicy email. Let's see what the next one's about. Maybe this will be less heavy. Who could say? Subject: Iapetus evaluation. I think that's an I. Because if it was a capital L, it would be differently shaped. I'm assuming this is another celestial body I don't know about, so presumably another pilot. Origin: Memorial Foundation Executive Committee Minutes. Author: Operations Decommission Chair, Europa. So Europa was in charge of decommissioning the operation, or the squad, or whatever. No. It's gratifying to know you share my suspicions as well, as I understand that it is the purpose of this committee to prepare for any eventuality. That this particular possibility hadn't crossed your minds was beginning to worry me. Oh, I'm no less worried now. But you're asking how to deal with Iapetus. That sense of superiority he has is not a weakness. It is truly dangerous, not just unpleasant. If he seems gracious or forgiving about a loss, it's only because he is utterly confident he will eventually be able to surpass you. But he's a realistic man. He will find the easiest route. Merely coming out on top in the end is enough. He wouldn't consider the quality of how he got there. In fact, it would reinforce his sense of superiority to know he surpassed you without having worked as hard as you did. He's shockingly good at predicting others, except for the moments in which he has wildly underestimated one. These fascinate me in particular. He can be so uncanny when it comes to gleaning specifics from trivial behavior. and then he is blindsided by the most obvious conclusions. His lack of respect for interiority is quite stunning. His win rate without having it should appall anyone with a general respect for human beings. Very interesting. Who's Iapetus? They're alluding to multiple pilots, and we've basically only talked to 3 people. I'm very curious if that's going to change at any point. I will cut out the actual typing, etc., but I am going to look up what Iapetus is, because it's clearly a real celestial body. The 3rd largest natural satellite of Saturn. Huh. So related to Saturn in an interesting way, and that's that we're doing Saturn's mission next, so I wonder if we're going to get anything related to Iapetus from that. Alternatively, is Iapetus going to be a Halimede-style figure for Saturn's route? We'll find out. Okay, so we're talking to Europa again. What is the moon drop, Luna Terra? Halimede says it was something you used to talk about. Oh my god, is this literally the Gundam plot point of a colony drop? Oh, yeah. There's only ever been one mech show, and it's just the same one over and over again. We were thinking about crashing the moon into the Earth. Literally? Yeah, that too in the end. The goal of the space program used to be to make all of the solar system figuratively equivalent to Earth. When humans touch it, it becomes ours. That's why we use the Greek word to identify the physical bodies of space, and the Roman word to represent our understanding and incorporation of it. Huh. So they renamed Mars to Ares was supposed to be an indication that we had taken over it. It used to be Mars when it was not, when it was alien, when it was part of the outside of our territory. But then we took over and it became Ares, and then we named a pilot Mars. So the pilot is not humans. Interesting implicit choice there. We were being silly, taking a metaphor way too literally and way too far, joking about crushing the solar system together. It would make sense to return to it. It would be nice and neat. Killing absolutely everyone. Yeah. It was a horrible thought I shared with Halimede. She hated it, but she kept on arguing about it with me. The Earth looks so fragile and small here, and the moon looks so big. That's probably why. It was a bad joke, and she never thought it was funny. Huh. Good. She is very perceptive when it comes to that. I am surprised always that people can find that self-destructive streak of yours harmless or imperceptible. I'm glad she didn't. I'm surprised you kept me around, given that. Should I have given up? Is that even a question? You should have followed your instincts. You appear to be misunderstanding. I take my work very seriously. As a leader, as a woman, as a pilot, as part of the Memorial Foundation. You know that there are very real things the Memorial Foundation believes in, and I believe in them too. Yeah. In seeking to bring all people together, however, there are choices that have to be made. Yeah, here it is. Here's the part where you're like, look, I care about everyone. But should we cut the world to fit its people, or the people to fit its world? I think that's pretty cut and dry. Cut the world. That is what we struggle with the most. Cut does not have to be a bad thing. It can be what's right, for you or for the world. Making space for what exists without allowing it to be erased. Those the world abandons die, which is unacceptable. Or they become another world, which is also unacceptable. A kind of violence. Like smashing the earth into the moon, hoping for togetherness, and killing everyone instead. We didn't find the right solution, but at least we knew which was a wrong one. Channel closed. Yeah, I feel like this kind of illustrates why the Memorial Foundation isn't going to do it for me. They become another world, which is also unacceptable. Like, you can't imagine having these people be distinct. You can't imagine having a way where you assume there has to be a compromise. Either the world needs to be, I'm going to use the word cut, which has some ambiguous interpretations, but you either cut the world or cut the people. You can't imagine just going, okay, but what if we just have two? What if we do just let people be in space and people can be what they want in space? Why is that unacceptable? Is it unacceptable because it's like sweeping a problem under the rug to basically export the people that, rather than this is my generous read on this, rather than improving the world such that everyone can be there, you instead say, what if the people that cause conflict, the people that aren't fitting, what if we just put them somewhere else and let that be their world? I can see why that is not a solution, but that doesn't. The solution there, the solution that is being proposed isn't resolving things satisfactorily for me, because it is just, what if we just made everyone come together and I'm sure we'll work it out from there. There's no forward-thinking plan. There's no point. This faction is not, as far as I can tell, coming from the viewpoint of, let's fix things such that the people who want to be elsewhere can be happy here. Their first step is, everyone has to be here. After that, we'll figure it out. And that's kind of what Luna Terra's response is saying too, that it is a kind of violence to force people to fit a society. Well, again, Europa's making allusions to the notion that they could change society to fit these people, but not proactively saying, we will definitely do this, or we will make X concession, or Y whatever. Instead, Europa's insisting, we'll all be here, and we'll work it out after we've all been brought here. Forcing people to accept this solution is a kind of violence. And it's the wrong one. And likewise, I don't know which of the other two factions yet I like, but I know I don't like this one. So that was a lot for the pre-mission segment. Let's move on to see Saturn again in deeper cuts. In the Garden District, closest to the malfunctioning and broken tidal reactor that kept the colony together, time and space aren't quite right. It's the perfect place for a real fight. How deep under Luna Terra's skin do you think she can get? Launching. Come on, Europa, it's weird when you don't order me. Can't you see I'm hesitating? Show some politeness. It's weird to see you hesitate. You don't do it. Then stop making it more weird. If you please, let a woman be weird for once. I have no problems returning to the colony. I wouldn't have thought you would have more hang-ups than me. You have no regrets, no pain, at any of your training or your service in the war, about anything that happened there, about the people you met there. I don't have any problems returning to the Lagrange colony for this mission. The academy where you shaped us all? No, I'm happy to put it to rest. I was a real idiot, so I don't mind seeing it trashed, or trashing it a little more to stop that celestial mechanics pilot from taking back the Lagrange reactor. Ah, you've taken an interest in Saturn. Professionally, She's a dangerous enemy. She was in Iapetus' division, but she was, yes, very clever. Yep, there we go, related to Iapetus. Funny that she is the planet, but was in the division of a moon. Probably don't need to care too much about planet names, but still. The Lagrange reactor is a worthless shard of nostalgia. Iapetus must be truly egomaniacal to send that prototype unit after it. That's a bad sign. The worst fights always happen over something worthless. It's certainly a trap, but you know that. It's still a chance to get one over him, and stop that pilot, if you're prepared to be serious. I'm always serious. Are you serious enough to stop playing? I'm not playing. Whether you are serious or playing isn't a matter of how you feel about it, it's a matter of whether you are committed or not, or if you're playing because you simply can't decide. You can't play forever. I told you, I still haven't decided. I'm not closing off the future until the last moment. Now we've got to play the whole game before we actually side with the faction. Decide what you want about the future when the future comes. But you will never move from this point if you don't decide how you feel about that pilot. Europa. Oh dear, you are feeling guilty again. Well, that's to be expected. I don't mind if you lose against that one, or win. Just choose, right? You don't have to tell me. I know what happens if I don't. Again, still not going to be loyal. These decisions are not going to be hard until we start playing as Pluto instead. Fight for real in a fun way. Pretty sure this is going to be even more intense flirting. Celestial mechanics advances. A surprise attack isn't very sporting. Don't be jealous just cause I got mine off first. You got a wound on me and the Lagrange reactor shell. That not a good enough deal? No way. In fact, apologize. Hiding so I can't surprise you again is so unfair, Luna Terra. Let me bully you some more. I'll pass. Are you sure? You sure you don't want to get bullied? See if you can find me first. You like cat and mouse games, don't you? You want to try it again? I won't let you just play a game this time. Can you find me even when I'm serious? Then I'll get serious. Luna Terra hides in the Garden District, the one part of the colony she has no memories of. The Garden District doesn't have any trees or flowers or plants. It's not that kind of garden. A garden for the children meant to inherit space. Not like Luna Terra, who came in the first generation. Teenagers, too old and too molded by the Earth's gravity to inherit the cosmos. Increasingly, I'm just more and more right to compare this to Gundam. The second generation was raised here, in the light of the colony's center. The Lagrange tidal reactor Luna Terra remembers like the sun, with the hope that they would grow freely in the lightest of gravity, free of Earth's weight. Luna Terra is the one holding the useless shell of that reactor now. Even broken and useless, LT doesn't feel comfortable holding it. It's an unpleasant, untrustworthy object, and it feels wrong to hold. It was made by people, but it doesn't seem like it was. It's a fake, but it's unsettlingly close to what celestial mechanics eventually intended it to be when they seized control of the reactor, before the conflict broke out. Something not made by humans. If it's so useless, why don't you give it back? You can tell what I'm thinking, huh? Or read between the lines. Just like Pluto, but different. Something I still can't understand. You've been playing with her too, haven't you? I sure have. Jealous? Of which of us, though? Both. I could never read the story like you both. I'm straightforward. That's not even a little true. You're being way too stingy with the narration. Narration? You can't perceive space-time as a story, a narration spun out of the ambient gravity of humans, telling you about everything that is, if you can't listen? You can't see how obviously your envy is bleeding out and everywhere, can you? I'm slipping, huh? Letting out more than I thought. But see why I'm jealous? I don't know anything about what you mean. I wish I could speak that language. Yeah, it's amazing. You should really be sad if you don't speak it. I just have this absence. Your impression on the narrative is something like spilled whiteout, a gushing ocean of bleach, which is a pain in the ass for someone like us. You also have a habit of acting too fast to get caught up in the story, especially when it's not going your way. 3 times faster than the story knows what to do with. That's how. You are different from Pluto. She would swell into the atmosphere, but you slowly breed into the spaces between the lines. I can feel you seeping through, blurring the lines between one and the other. What is it you're after? Curious? Then stop hiding. The rain-slick streets are looking more and more the same. The weather is malfunctioning, and the moisture regulator is shot, and the failing gravity is doing strange things, playing some strange tricks. Mare Chrysium's feet are wet. She's afraid. She's falling right into a trap that feels like it's in every direction at once. You can't trick me. Luna Terra dodges at the last second, or was never there. If Saturn bleeds into the narrative, then Luna Terra's trick is having a real habit of interrupting the story just when it's getting good. Good thing she'll never know how much Saturn and Pluto think that's cool. I have eyes too, Luna Terra. Don't think gravity alone is enough. Saturn swipes again. Luna Terra wouldn't be hit by such a thing, but she isn't ready for the dripping, sparkling Noro lightning. She misjudges the distance, the unsureness of gravity. Mare Chrysium sparks and bleeds from her left arm. Luna Terra swings her spear, crushing the string of pearls to the ground. It crumples, then darts away, lost in the mist. Saturn's worse off, but her machine will fix itself, and the poison in Mare Chrysium's systems is only getting worse. You almost got me, but not quite. Is your game a little off today, Luna Terra? I thought you were gonna be serious. You're going to have to do a lot better than that if you want to see me serious. You're misunderstanding. I'm going to cheat. You're the one who has to take this seriously. How's that arm feeling? Still sparkling, still gooey? It doesn't take that much, you know. Have you been cleaning your system regularly? What kind of fight are you looking for? A one-sided fight where you try your hardest and still lose. Haha, looking for payback? What? No, who cares about that? It's for you. Because you love getting owned. You're never holding back, there's no way I can beat you. You're even stronger than any story anyone's told about you. You always win and no one touches you. If ship self fights were life and death, that'd make you a genius. If... Oh, there's a lot to unpack here. But they're not. They're made in the image of plastic toys to fight like plastic toys. So that makes you an idiot for not playing along and being honest. Ha. Ha. You'll save a lot of time if you give in and say I'm right now. If you beat me for real, then that'll be all the answer you need. Stoic to the last. But that's great. Your holding out on me is actually kind of delicious. When's the story going to tell me what's happening? When are you going to let me hear about all the static in your joints, the trembling in your mask, your slackening grip? I'm on the edge of my seat, waiting to know. Luna Terra knows that it's true. Saturn can't sense where she is at all, but she knows immediately that Luna Terra knows she knows. Tell me about that and I promise, without any hate or fear, I'll listen. You don't believe me, but I promise, I won't laugh or hurt you. I can't see you, so you can escape if you want. I'll let you keep that little ball even, and the poison will wear off. But I want to see. Do you want to show me? The Mare Chrysium crashes to the ground, skids along the wet streets of the colony. Her legs give out, and her arms are too weak to catch her fall. String of pearls lands gently, surprisingly, but that's what these ships were meant to do. They're meant to land gently. Even the electrotoxins are tingly, not painful, in a warm, numbing sort of way, like licking a battery, but with every part of your body. There's no way Luna Terra can stand up. As soon as she lets it all in, she falls in a mess, totally defeated. Oh wow, you really did it. You got so quiet. You're so well trained. You're the big strong ace, but you shut down so quickly. You really can't deal with me at all. Why is that? Didn't you say you weren't going to bully me? I'm showing all possible restraint. You really did make it hard. I thought you were kinda cool. You really acted like you knew what you were doing. Even though you were so scared. Leave me alone. Oh no, baby, but you love this. You're looking forward to it. I can see right through you. These ships are meant to touch. If you never lose, you never let anyone in. Thinking of this as losing at all is actually kind of sad. You want to give this all up and drag me home? Are you really sure? Luna Terra, you really ought to not lie to me so much. This smug, untouchable Luna Terra that I used to hate, she's so boring. But the you that you don't want anyone else to see, that's a much better you. That's the you I want to see. Luna Terra is conscious of her own breath, of the unconscious pulsing rhythm of her ship self, which trembles, and not just from the electrotoxins. She really can't move in any sort of effective way, but what she's feeling isn't fear, or even helplessness. It's anticipation. If she thought that she trusted Saturn as much as anyone else, not at all. Now that she has no choice, she's surprised. She trusts Saturn so much, even knowing exactly what she wants to do. Saturn plucks the broken reactor out of Mare Chrysium's hands and tosses it away like trash. And I will. Now that I have the power to peel your skin off and see it, I'm really happy. I never thought I'd finally get to see you like this, even though you're letting me. Little secrets just for me, and the narration will never tell. For you only. So only I get to see you twitching and helpless? No one else knows? Not telling, but it's just for you, so keep it ambiguous. Got it. I could be straddling you and pinning you, that's certainly possible, but not for certain. I'm not saying anything definite. You've got it. Thank you. I've got my pride. Yeah? Your pride? Tell me about that. It's worth a lot to me. Then I'm worth even more, right? That was so much. I'm gonna have to look at the data log to kind of parse through some of that. Big question about, in specific, what the fights are a metaphor for, because they're clearly not fights. They're not fights to the death, but we'll get back to that. It's January 30th, 1981, and the day is almost here. The deadline to save everyone who came up to space with us, fought with us, tried to bring everyone up with us. If we shut down the lunar gravity well, there won't be any choice left. The power that keeps our ship selves in check will fall apart, and we won't have anywhere else to go but home. If we kill the dream, no one will die. We really, really hope that's true. No one should die in space. No one should die, period. No one has to die, because ship self-combat is shimmering missiles of light, cosmic explosions, electricity that sears through the soul, blade sciences impossible for a human to produce, dances of combat without end. A fight against ideas with toys. Humans would never show that kind of compassion to each other. Oh, this is Luna Terra. Well, I'm just going to continue reading it in this voice. Earth's answer is a single atomic particle fired at near light speed directly into the cockpit core. A true weapon from a military force. The quickest, most efficient, instantaneous, unavoidable way to kill a human. The most boring possible way to pointlessly die. No drama, no meaning. Just nothing. Luna Terra, Memorial Foundation Ace Pilot. Really hammering home the ship self fights are ideological conflict and debate. Interpersonal and ideological conflict more so than any kind of violence or actual harm, physical, material harm. Whereas straight up on Earth, they've got a military that can just shoot you dead immediately, and that's it. Pointless, just instantaneous death. It's January 30th, 1981, so this is Pluto. In the end, they might get everything they want, in the way that no one wants. If we open up the lunar gravity well, then we can establish forever another Earth, and maybe another. We can inhabit the whole system. That will cut humanity into two, and more. The distance will be so much further. Everything we have will be even farther from them. How much are we going to lose? How much will we never be able to give them? The moon is very close to being part of Earth. It's full of life, and humans can live here now. It feels impossible, and I don't want to give it up. We should break it off forever, shouldn't we? All I want is to stitch these two humanities together. But if one of us dies as a result, I will fight forever to keep that precious thing alive. Pluto, Princess of Cradle's Graces. So Pluto is also a princess. That's interesting. I wonder if it's the case that Pluto is Halamede's sister, if they're both princesses. Interesting thought. We'll see how that goes. This characterizes some of why it would be a bad thing for Cradle's Graces to get what they want, where there is a cost. So the rest of the recording for this episode just has no game audio, or had no game audio in my video, for reasons I don't understand. I've just put in audio from the game's soundtrack to match to the scenes, but if you're wondering why it's off and there's no sound effects, that's exactly why. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode. Okay, so here's our third one, and this is from Saturn. So this is rounding out our giving more context to the different political factions. It's January 30th, 1981. They don't name it because naming it gives it power, but not naming it gives it more. It must be in every corner, behind every door, far, far away, in the spaces between the stars. It is defined and categorized in every human culture, and it is deliberately omitted from explicit naming conventions by Memorial Foundation in favor of a euphemism less captivating to the imagination, such as existential threat, rather than a specific word which would stimulate the imagination. But a trick like this will not work. In the euphemism is a hollow void that can hold all fears and possibilities. Through gravity, humans decide what is real and what is not, but what is not does not stop existing, and it, like humans, can decide. It's the kiss of inverse, everything that humans can imagine, but can't become. The shortcut to attaining it is to forsake everything that humans already are. If a bunch of idiots get tricked into going there, it would make a very convenient enemy for Earth. That's their real fear. Before that happens, I will tell you a little secret. Ready? Saturn, Celestial Mechanics Test Pilot. So this one, I think I am supposed to be most unsure about celestial mechanics. They are somewhat obscure. I mean, that's even quite literal in that Luna Terra knows who Pluto is, but does not know who Saturn is, to begin with. Is celestial mechanics interested in embracing the existential threat, even if it means displacing humanity on Earth? I kind of only have guesses at this point, because it's still not... It is not directly addressing things, or well, it is directly addressing things, but it is not then saying, and this is what we want. They're very concerned with the existential threat, but not in the sense that they see it as a threat, in a sense that they want to materialize what it is. They want to not continue othering it. So I'm mostly reading it as an embrace of the other, almost doing away with the notion of doing away with the notion of a split in the first place. Somewhat related, I guess, to Memorial Foundation's attempt to forcefully unite people, but in the other way. I guess it is hard to know how to characterize it until I know what materially they would do. Because there's a version of this where you are forcing people off of Earth and saying, all of you gotta go live in space. Trust me, you'll prefer it, and it is what you need. But there's also a version of it where it's more just about forcing Earth to acknowledge and deal with the fact that there will be people in space without allowing the kind of boundary where space gets acknowledged as a separate thing, and instead trying to deal with the constant us versus them mentality at multiple levels all the way down. Because the middle section where it's like, through gravity, blah 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 blah, the shortcut to attaining it is to forsake everything that humans already are. I can't tell if celestial mechanics is suggesting this would be a good thing. Well, I guess Saturn in particular is the one talking here. Can't tell if Saturn thinks this is a good thing, or thinks this is a thing that could happen that they don't want to. Because there's an extent to which the othering and the kind of distance, the kind of boundary being placed between us and the existential threat is preventing an actual dialogue with the existential threat. There's no way to look at it, there's no way to kind of learn from it, whether or not you would embrace it, whether or not you would stop it or get rid of it. You can't do any of that if you're going to place a hard boundary between the two. Day 7. Receiving report. Report data unverifiable. Awaiting manual acceptance. Report accepted. Damage to Lagrange colony indicates most likely fulfillment of duties. Incoming alert. All Memorial Foundation troops. Prepare for landing on Moon Base. Alert. Cradles, Graces, and Celestial Mechanics troops have seized control of the gravity well. We must prepare for the confrontation we have always feared. But there's still hope. We will bring everyone home, safe. We have Earth on our side. We will be prepared. Generating new assignments. Assignment, Scouting Mission. Verify status of Earth-controlled automatus military units. Assignment, free time. Spend as you wish before the final battle. Your record is clear. Indicate you have understood new orders. Why? Ready for gravitational catapult. Welcome home. So wait a minute. God, I love the weight being represented in this faction alignment chart. These are both missions, right? Okay. Am I still doing both of these? So hang on, sorry, let me click delay so I can. So Give Me the Moon says, it's time to move to the future, peacefully or painfully. No factions, no dreams, just two girls lost and entwined in the warm summer of the moon's day. That's the free time, just fucking around thing. Plastic versus metal. Earth has promised to let the children of space sort themselves out, for now. But their machines of war guard the way back home, just in case. When Saturn and Luna Terra meet in a chance encounter, the true terror of humanity stares them down. Okay, so I mean that answers one question. This is specifically going to be with Pluto. I thought for a moment it might be pick whichever girl you want. And then this is a confrontation with Saturn. Okay, well before that, mails and alerts and comms, etc. But even before that, let's go back in our dialogue. Oh, sorry, this is the intro we just saw. Okay. Now, I'll probably skip the video around here where I just need to find some things to talk about. So this section, there's a lot of talk about perceiving spacetime as a story, narration spun out of the ambient gravity of humans, how Luna Terra's envy is bleeding out and everywhere around. So, as I had expected, the title drives, presumably, I'm going to make some assumptions here, but there are implications that I'm just going to have to run with. The title drives that are powering all of these mechs are special things that I believe relate to the psychology of the pilots, mostly because that's just how these things tend to go. In this case, emotions are obviously important, which again makes sense because they're all about interpersonal relationships, and also the mechs are about communication and tools for interacting with other people, having ideological struggle, and coming to blows to come to some understanding, at the very least. But this is a much more literal thing, and the thing that is particularly interesting here is how much Saturn is aware of it, very visibly aware of it, can, as she describes it, see it, while Luna Terra is not. It's not something we get in narration, it's not something we get, I mean, maybe we're getting it visually and it's just kind of abstract to see. Obviously the fights themselves are very, I don't even know what word to use, but the fights themselves are like choreographed things. The fights themselves, as I've said many a time, are like thematic and not about life or death conflict, which is again said quite literally here. Yeah, there is a strong implication that Luna Terra is just not as conscious of these same forces, or not as able to perceive them as readily. And also that Luna Terra just sounds so tired and done with things. She sounds like she's so barely holding on to having a dog in this fight. It often sounds more like inertia than active interest, but is interested in the people involved, and that is why this still matters. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting overall, whereas the other two are way more ideologically invested. Or it's hard to even know if Saturn's ideologically invested. Saturn might also just be, I guess it is both, because I mean Pluto is also just extremely specifically interested in Luna Terra as a person and their relationship and the fallout of it. And I like Saturn's whole position in this conversation is just trying to force Luna Terra to engage. Okay, here we go. You always win and no one touches you. If ship stealth fights were life and death, that'd make you a genius. But they are not life and death. They are about communication, or depending on exactly how we fall in this, they're a form of communication, whether that's a debate, an argument, like an interpersonal fight. They are not about killing one another. They're about I mean, given the fact that we're choosing factions, I do think they're about getting someone to understand your point of view or listen to it or be more empathetic to it. And also the implication that if it was just about killing people, Luna Terra would just mop the floor with people, but that's not what they're doing. They're fighting like plastic toys, which is interesting. Like play acting like it's fake, but also in the sense that it's theater, not just that it's not real, but that it is a put upon thing. Like when one of their mechs stabs the other in a leg, that's dramatic for the purpose of the conflict. And specifically, Saturn calls out Luna Terra's inability to engage as not being honest, which is very interesting. These ships are meant to touch. If you never lose, you never let anyone in. Again, just underscoring the ships are for making contact and not for staying distant. You are supposed to receive something from the other person. And the idea that conceding and then taking that in. So again, I think this is about learning from that other person. So if you have an ideological conflict per se, where one of you thinks you should do A and the other thinks you should do B, if you end up agreeing with the other person and deciding B does make more sense after you've talked to them, that's not a loss. That's you having communicated with another person, come to an understanding, and eventually going, alright, I think that's correct. Whether or not you think that's correct, whether or not you think that you have this, whether or not you're just, I am on board with this now. It is sad to think of that as a loss, because you are not giving up something. The fact that you thought one thing before is not an indictment of you. You are not expected to always have correct opinions or always be on the right side. The thing you should do is try to improve and try to move forward and do things that are better as you go. So yeah, the idea that Luna Terra is kind of just shut off and is just stuck with the situation and then doesn't let anyone convince her otherwise is interesting. And is also funny because I've basically been betraying at every turn after day one. So textually, that's not what I have been doing as choices, but Luna Terra is still written to be very distant. And then this whole ending section just being about intimately knowing each other. Luna Terra actually letting her in, not just letting her know her broadly, but letting her peel away the skin of her mech. Like, that's a very strong metaphor there. Yeah. A lot of the conversations I feel like have been very rich, but hard to... I don't want to interrupt them. I don't want to stop the flow of conversation. But they're also just very little to grasp onto, because maybe it'll be easier in my second run through, but I've gotten a lot more concrete nuggets to understand from the surrounding material. But this conversation, this had a lot in it. Alright. So that's going to do it for this episode. A little bit shorter than normal, but this was a big conversation. There was a lot to talk through. And I think the next episode will actually just finish out the game. So a slightly longer episode, but I think it's going to just barrel through the finale. Look forward to that anyway. And as always, do support Pillowfight games. Buy their games, this one or other ones. Thank you for watching.
I can't stand being human like this.